Hello.
Hey,
Hey, Steven. So what's going on with the Zoom links? There are
oh,
quite
this
a.
is it's not Steven, it's me. It's Wim, by the way.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. Something is
See,
going on, right? There are a lot of
Yes.
Zoom links for this one.
Stephen posts a Zoom link and then he posts a second different Zoom link for this meeting. So I'm not sure.
so I'm not sure what happened. I do know that we have switched to a different, so to PMO admin, which is the account on which we can control the meetings ourselves because we had lots of issues with the LFX setup. So we in SIG2 we moved first to this, and that seemed to work fine. And now I think all the other SIGs are moving. What is not done yet, and I think we'll fix it today, is that this Zoom meeting, so we move to this new thing, we have to update the calendars to reflect that. And I didn't have the permissions to do so, but so we will take care about that going forward. So I think that's one of the missing pieces.
Yeah, every day, every moment I got confused. I have two sets of Zoom meeting numbers.
Yes. So the best is to delete. So from the moment we have this in the calendar, to delete what you have in place, and then we will fix it.
The
Also,
things I deleted, it came back somehow from automatic somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, I have choose the short link.
There's very good reason to make that change, obviously. The so now we all use the same account for meetings. So there'll definitely not be, well, definitely not be would be a strong word. There should not be any time conflict on the meetings because there's like a major proliferation of meetings recently from SIG2. So we are very confused in a way that are we going to overlap in time?
Sure, blame it on 6.2.
I do blame on SIG2.
So Wim, your colleague Timo might be still in the other call with the other link.
No.
Yeah, let me go ask.
I put PMO because I started the meeting right now because there's also the start button, so I don't know. I was in the other.
It's good that you did that because I was going to log in as PMO admin to start the recording, and then I came in as PMO admin, and then I saw that you're already PMO admin, so I quit and then came back.
Okay, but I can record it for you if you want. But
yeah, go ahead. Yeah. You're already recording it right now, so that's okay.
No, not yet.
Yeah,
no, it's recording right now. It is recording right now.
Yeah, the other thing bizarre is like from time to time I receive an email notification. Somebody joined this meeting and asked me to start the meeting. So I click start. There's one or two people there. Realize this is wrong call, wrong meeting, and how can we stop that wrong system completely? Even
yeah. So this is a very good question. No. So the LFX
it's from
stuff
Nephew
once it's
project.
in calendar.
Yeah, it's from meetings at LFX.
Yeah.
Linux Foundation.org. Keep sending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the LFX would not, even Lucy is not able to remove it, so it's still on that calendar.
Okay, never mind.
I see Timon there. Yeah, that's right. Although he doesn't seem very active.
Yeah, I tried to tell him that it's moved.
Well, yeah, it's chat and all that, but then
I thought Wim is probably got a secure communication with him that he can inform.
Yeah. Oh well. Hopefully realize at some point. Okay, let's get started. So this is the SIG release meeting for what is today? March 20th, 2023. Going on to the agenda. So first thing is obviously subgroup. So we're not SIG2. We turns out when John asked me to start like formulating subgroups and things, and then and then trying to figure out what is actually there. We're not SIG2, we don't really need a lot of subgroups. We're not going to spin off a lot of meetings. I think this meeting right now is weekly, would probably be more than enough to do it. The time is kind of bad, I guess, for probably a lot of people that isn't on the West Coast. So I do want to know if it's okay for everybody to be on this 10 a.m. Pacific time meeting. I mean, probably the fact that you're here means you're okay, but I guess I'll send out something to the community and ensure that this is the 10 a.m. meetings. It's terrible for India time. It's probably terrible for European time also, in a way. Plus 9 would be 7 p.m. right now. So I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I think
that's
so
it.
for anything towards east. I think, I mean, for us, it's okay.
For Bala and Wish, which are very important members of the SIG, it's 12 o'clock, right? It's 12. So
Yeah, we'll skip our lunch.
it's
Whatever
into your lunchtime.
Yes,
about
it's
that.
okay. We'll skip lunch for the nephew project to succeed.
Yeah, this is okay for Central, but I think for India and Europe, it's going to be,
Yeah, it's very tough. All China. Yeah. So
I'm
Yeah.
fine, but I'm in all kinds of time zone. I'm actually in the US, right? So it's,
Yeah, I somehow feel that Vim, you probably have like not just twin brothers, you probably are triplets or quadruplets. You seem to be everywhere all the time.
yeah, I want to
he's-
exercise all the time
all at
zone.
once.
Yeah. I think Wim's in a different time zone every time we see him.
Yeah, that's why I suspect that he's got himself cloned, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think you were like in India like last week or week before or something, right?
Yeah, you need to share the technology, Vim, so that we can also have clones of ourselves.
Well,
Yes.
Nokia has this thing called a time turner. They develop it from
Harry Potter.
Oxford.
All right.
So subgroups. So we don't need a lot of subgroups. We can formulate a bunch of things that needs to be done for SIG3, but it kind of groups under. You can group everything under test infra, basically. The initial init scripts, even building packages, tools to build packages, all that other things are probably something that the test infra would have to do anyway. So I kind of group that under one. The project management. Things I don't need a lot of people to do. I'm not going to do it, but I don't need a lot of people to do it. For test infra, I reached out to Vish. He gracious to take the lead. So and he did that on the ONE Summit. I think all of us has had great experience having Vish run this. So thank you, Vish. And then for the project management things, actually I reached out to Bala. He hasn't responded. He's here. But then it's more like overseeing things to make sure that we are doing the right thing, and then making sure that the schedule is on place, ping everyone to see or not. Hey, we're about to hit code freeze, and then can you drop this feature, stuff like that.
So
Yeah,
can I ask,
I
may I ask a
can do
question?
that.
Yeah, great. So there you go, Bala. We'll take that. Go ahead, Rich. Sorry.
So the test infra. So what I'd like to understand is one, for the workshop, I know John is here, good. For the workshop, we use the project on Google, the Google project to be able to create VMs. One would like to know if we continue to have access to that.
Yeah, it is because it's an FEO one. So
It's actually an FEO, so that's funded by Linux Foundation. Well, funded by Google via Linux
funded by Linux Foundation.
But and going forward, certainly that's where our PROW instance runs. So that's available to us. Obviously, we can't just consume millions of dollars worth of resources.
Limitlessly,
millions of dollars, but that's available to us. Over time, we would hope, and maybe post R1, that there may be labs available with other clouds, with other vendors and things like that. But I think that'll be for R1. Let's just
Yeah. So PROW is an ongoing running thing, so it needs to consume compute resource, and it will be under this Nepio account. As we get closer and closer to release, I would imagine we would like to run the test setup as a long term on the cloud also. So that's also, got to be a little more cautious to use it, but yeah. This is
Okay.
whatever
So-
we pay them. I don't know, X% of that is being used for this setup thing. So it's not a lot.
Okay, because at this point of time, I see that we don't probably need to use bare metals, but at some point of time in the future.
I don't think we have any, right? So that's the problem. I don't think we have any.
Yeah,
bare
at
metals.
some point, we'll need that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Red Hat might be able to help. Yeah, somebody
Oh,
like
I
that.
mean,
was
so
thinking that
by
Google
the time
Cloud,
we
Google has
April rolls
got
along,
bare metals, right? Unless you have your own customized bare metals, because I don't know if Google Cloud has actually got the white boxes.
I don't think so. I don't know. They're always coming out with new services, so it's hard for me to keep track. But I mean, we eventually might want to lab. Yeah. Anyway, those are all very far off. Like, let's start with what we've got.
Okay.
And
Okay, good to know. That means the scope for whatever I'm trying to help out is for R1, basically. At this point of time.
So obviously extending only some of the pieces. Hopefully reach out back to the people who contributed to that, and they would also contribute for before R1 to make it harden. There's Container Labs. Vim has done something, so we'll like to take advantage of that too for infrastructure going forward. But then hopefully we get people to do things like last time on the ONE Summit.
Okay,
like
so
5 people were there last time.
cool.
So that would be nice to have.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you for some of those things as a handover, or things that you might want me to focus on. I'll reach out to you. Because one other thing I want to actually, for us to be able to do is when we are actually pushing PRs, that we need to actually make sure that gets worked. I don't want to get to the point of just accepting PRs when it comes to infrastructure, unless it is actually
So you have to verify infrastructure. You have the infrastructure to verify the verification infrastructure.
Yeah, because then we don't want somebody else going off, trying it out and saying that, oh, it didn't work on mine. But we can say with confidence when we accept a PR, yes, it was on this Linux Foundation Google account. We created a VM and it is actually it's working. We want to approach it that way. Okay.
Yeah, we're not using, none of us will be development-wise, we're using anything that isn't rubber stamped by you, basically, onto the repo. So, okay. So thanks, Bala and Vish. So the next thing would be the seed code. So let's get started. I just talked about the seed code on the last meeting. It's rather.
Stephen,
it's rather. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
No, just a quick comment. I think Rado, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, is on the call. I think they wanted to work on the browse CI/CD part or anything related to CI/CD really. Rado, do you want to?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, you pronounced it right. Yeah, I'm Radosław Radochmiel. I volunteered myself to help on test infra, CI/CD tasks, and I reached out to Aravind, and so here I am.
So you can talk to Vish, and then you can coordinate. That would be great. But thank you for volunteering.
Hey, welcome, Rado. Yeah, I'm glad we already have a volunteer.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. By the way, Vim.
Yeah, so there were a few things that we discussed in our subgroup already, which probably are related here. Is like one of the things that we were, let's say, leaning upon. So the CRDs that we would create from Nephio, right? That we would create a dedicated repo for it. So our structure would be is that we had per function a separate repo, or per controller a separate repo. But then for some of the CRDs, we would have a single repo potentially, because one of the things that we discussed in our subgroup so far was that if we make a CRD, we have to we use in this function is typically a YAML manipulation, and then you had also methods in the CRD that you use in controllers. So the idea is to use that CRD repo to to basically build those libraries such that we can reuse them in all the various functions or controllers that we use. How do
Okay.
we?
Yeah. So we welcome creation of repos. We do not want to have too many. And then so the request can go to Bala now.
So
Okay.
I think that,
Yeah.
so along those lines, Wim, I was thinking about this last night, or
Mhm.
I don't know, at some point. I think I think a per controller repo might be like, I don't know, it might be too much. But maybe we have one for APIs, which includes both the CRD Go marked up code, as well as these libraries you're talking about, and maybe the Go client code, which if it's necessary, and then a controllers one for all the controllers and injectors, and then a functions one for all the functions. Or you could put functions and controllers into one, or we could just put them all in an Nefio one and have Nefio API and Nefio. I just feel like I don't want to introduce too much overhead.
Yeah.
On because then you have, once you have separate repos, and you have like, oh, I need to have a Go module and I need to pin it to that one, and it just gets. What do you?
I understand. Yeah. So I wanted to discuss a little bit the structure that we had in mind. I think it seems that on the CRDs we have somehow a bit of a consensus, right? So maybe we could.
Yeah, so that probably needs to be up because for CLD types probably needs to be included by more than one component. So
right.
Probably would be something.
Correct. Yeah. And that's why for me, we can start maybe with the CRDs. Let me think a little bit about the function and controllers.
Okay.
I mean, sure, you can still reference to a particular CRD and different
sure,
repo,
yeah.
but then a centralized place would be great.
Yeah, because I think the reason why I'm saying it for twofold. Also, the CRDs that we have right now in the document, I want to check in into Git and then have all of the stuff done there. There's no point in having that in this document somewhere over there. We could already have people start building those libraries and stuff like that. So all of that stuff we can get going potentially.
Okay, so,
because we're still trying to figure out the controllers a little bit.
What do you say to one called Nefio-API? API or API plural? What do we want? Nefio APIs or Nefio API?
How does
the Kube builder is going to force you to use an S. when you have more than one, they start creating APIs directory.
So, but you have like in Kubernetes they call it core, right? So we have core.
Oh,
right. We want this, or
are you sharing something?
I just put it on chat. Yeah.
Okay.
Or do we want an S on the end? I'll just create it right now, and we'll be.
So what's the best practice, John? Whether
I don't think there is one for the repo name. There's like directory, because underneath this, I usually see API without the plural.
I would do without the plural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this for Go projects?
Yeah.
Go projects usually have a standard. I mean, at least I've seen some. This was like 2 years back. I don't know if Kubernetes is following something similar or.
Kubernetes. Let's see what Kubernetes does.
Yeah. Because there's Go projects having certain layout, and then Kubernetes, I don't know much. So.
Well, so this is less about the layout than it is about the. Yeah, there's just Kubernetes/API. I guess we could just have Nefio project/API.
Yeah.
That's the canonical location of Kubernetes API definition. So Kubernetes is super weird. So in Kubernetes, everything's done or not everything, but a lot of things are done in mono repo, KK, Kubernetes. But then they actually have a staging area where they like project them into different repos, because what happened was they started with a mono repo, which was great. And then people were like, well, I want to build something on top of Kubernetes. So I'm gonna include the whole Kubernetes tree, and it's this massive tree of dependencies. So they kind of started to break it up into smaller repos because it makes it easier for downstream projects to consume it, is really more what it's about. So we're trying to avoid their initial mistake of making it all a giant mono repo. But if we just put the API, so we could have, and unfortunately I couldn't get github.com/Nefio, which is annoying because there's a dormant zombie project organization with that. But we could do, we could just do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, then I'll create it right now.
Okay.
You still have your hand up, Vim? You have a question?
No, sorry, that was it. Yeah. Sorry.
So I have one question for John. I mean, in the context of having multiple controllers, maybe functions under the same repo, in terms of how we want to structure, is everything will have their own directories, top level directories, and within that there'll be a ghost structure. Is that how it's going to be?
I'm sorry, say that again. I was typing that. You're asking about within the API repository or the high level or what repository?
No, not much about the API. So let's say you all suggested we use one controllers.
I suggested that, but I think Wim's not on board with or not sure. I know Tal here also didn't.
My question is, if we go with your way, if you say we go with your that one repo, I understand it's like its simplicity. I mean, and we don't have too many dependencies at this point of time. I wanted to understand from you, would it be like for each controller will be a top level directory, and within that we'll have a go mod structure?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe like I haven't muted. Like we could do that, or we could have, right? You could have like Nepio controllers, foo controller, like this, and then there can be Nepio like PKG that different controllers share packages in there, and then the Go module. Yeah, we'd have to decide where our Go module that you'd probably have one. I mean, you certainly are building a binary out of foo controller, right? But I don't know that you could have a separate Go module there, I guess. I don't know. These are the questions we have to, I don't know if we.
No, well, so another thing that definitely needs to happen is we need to have different committers on different modules.
Right.
So I think that's controlled by the ownership file, right? The owner file.
You'd have like a foo controller / owners.
So if you put it on if the same repo, different directory, we should be able to still control it that way, right?
Yes. And you can, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if we use Prow, it's owners. If you use the native GitHub thing, it's like code owners or something. They added that since Prow was written, but probably we just stick with owners. But so I don't know that. I think we need to discuss that. I don't know if I mean, I'm happy to discuss it here, but I don't want to hijack Stephen's meeting. It's up to you guys. The other option was like, instead of being directly under Nepio / controllers, there'd be a Nepio - controllers, and then you'd have something under there. Definitely Nepio project / API would be a Go module on its own. But what Go modules we have for individual controls, we need to build individual binaries out of them. But you don't need a module necessary to do that. Because you could also then have Nepio / Karam functions or something, right? Like.
But normally when you build them, John, don't you have to, if you build a Docker file, you basically say go mod, and then you say go mod download, and then you take it from there, and then it's. So that's what you typically do in the Docker file,
and
right?
module doesn't line up with repo anyways. It's okay. You can put it on different directory.
Yeah, correct. So
you can still build the different modules off of the different directory.
Yeah, Go mod per actually controller or function.
You could do that.
It would be necessary, because otherwise I think or at least that's my current.
It might make your Docker builds easier. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah. But that's fine, right? The only problem is that if you take that whole repo, if you clone it, sometimes you have to do workspaces. You have to do something in like your editor of choice to deal with that. But it's okay. It's okay.
I think Omar will figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I didn't say yes or no is because there is all these implications, and I didn't think about it through.
I don't know all. I'm not. Yeah. So my editor of choice is VI, and
Okay, me too.
Bash. So I don't know anything about IDEs. I haven't used one in many,
Yes.
many years. So
Goland. Go for it. Goland.
yeah.
There is a new one these days. ZED, I think, next to VS Code.
So Goland has been great for me, at
I'll
least
find
if
it
you ask
wonderful. I
my
don't spend
opinion.
enough time. Yeah.
What? Nobody's using Emacs?
I used to, but it's been a few years.
Yeah, not anymore.
Sorry.
Neither do.
Couldn't resist.
Okay, let's get started. So as many people hopefully see from the Slack, we pull out some seed code last night. What are they? They're 4 different repositories right now. So as John said, maybe they all get collapsed into different things moving forward. But then, so the common library is, common lib is a misnomer. It's actually common types. They're just types that are included mainly by the unit test around each of the different modules. EdgeWatcher is a library. It's been linked currently by the NF deploy controller. The other 2 are controllers. They're pods running in Kubernetes. And then the EdgeWatcher is a library that is watching. Well, it's a gRPC server, waiting for things to happen. And then it also has a client interface for you to be able to get those updates. So NF deploy controller implements one of those clients on top of EdgeWatcher. The client gives you a list watch type interface. If you know the Kubernetes object, usually give you a list watch interface. You can watch and list off of even those simulated objects off of EdgeWatcher. NF deploy controller is basically a very early version of the 5G core topology controller. It's so early that it doesn't. It uses very early version of Porch, so there's no conditions, there's no package conditions. Forget about package variants and stuff, but not even package conditions. So you see, we use it purely as a wrapper of Gig on here. So that would definitely be refactored big time. And then the Watcher agent is the thing that runs on the workload clusters. You tell them exactly what to watch, they watch it, and then they send it back to gRPC messages what the updates are. So currently it looks like this. In the grand scope of Nefio, maybe what it does today is actually this is very close to the product architecture that we get the seed code from, except for Free5GC, where we use someone else's. We see other network function vendors' network functions, obviously. So in that case, you push a NF deployed, which you can read the CLD later. I'll talk about that in SIG2 meeting on Wednesday, more than today. And then the controller, you can see, has a hydration piece, hydration entity, and a deployment entity, broadly speaking. And then it does fan out by itself. So that predates, again, that also predates the package deployment controllers that we built during ONE Summit. So it actually basically does the fan out. It uses Porch basically just as a wrapper for Gig. It actually writes a wrapper of Porch too, so it's like it has an interface of Porch. And then you have to have catalog repo. They fetch that UPF deployment source from that, and then it doesn't really do any hydration other than fan out. So you get pretty much the same package on the deployment repo, and then so everything's pretty much manual at that point. So once you approve, it gets zipped into deployment repo, config and pick it up. So what is different here is the deployment side. I always forgot to get the laser pointer up. The deployment entity, which is still part of the NF deploy controller, it's start an instance of EdgeWatcher, if you will. It's basically linking to the EdgeWatcher library. It starts an instance of gRPC server and register that with the EdgeWatcher. The EdgeWatcher, that doesn't work on us, so I'll talk about that later. So it watches for clusters. If new Edge clusters get created, it would identify from the NF deployed CL what is the network functions that were supposed to go there. It would then tell them exactly for this namespace, for this CL is what you monitor. And then this is my IP address. This is my port number. So go ahead and send something back to me. So the Watcher agent, who is a controller operator that watches this particular CL, would then be interpreted as CL understanding to create a gRPC client, establish connections, and talk to the Edge Watcher in this case, and then start monitoring this particular namespace resources, periodically. And then for R1, again, this is more like 2 topics. So for R1, we'll probably refactor. One of the big refactoring is we'll definitely we'll most likely, I would, Wim talk about that too. We'll most likely for R1 leverage the Edge Watcher piece big time. So that probably will split that out as its own controller, and if deploy controller will be either drastically changed or even not even there anymore. That's because right now the package management and package specialization subgroups are talking about how to model this. There may or may not even be a topology controller, although Bernard today said that it should be a topology exposing topology somehow, so maybe we still keep it. And then it will be leveraging things like package variants and vector variant sets moving forward. But I will talk about that on SIG2 on Wednesday. So what is the, well, go ahead, Wim, sorry.
I have one question. So the Watcher CR on that comes from the management cluster to the workload cluster. Are you leveraging config sync and stuff like that to do so, or is it all?
No. Yes, it does. Yeah, we do. Yes, it's a config sync. Yeah.
Because also
so our system assumes config sync get install. Actually, all of them get installed at the same time. And yes, so they get installed already automatically when the cluster is created, and then all of them get spin and running. So we're using config sync to push it.
Because today for R1, what we are doing is that we have a package at the moment that John created at the beginning, right, which contains config sync and a bunch of other stuff. So we could put the Edge, so the Watcher controller as part of that, and then the CR.
Yeah. So the Watcher agent itself should be bundled. So we do that right too on a product. So we spin up a config sync, this guy and some infra operator, if you will, all at the same time when we detect that the Edge cluster is up and running.
Yeah, so that part is taken care of. Is just how the NF deploy controller takes. Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Vala, go ahead.
Yes, Steven, sorry, you might have explained it in the last meeting, but I was kind of doing a lot of multitasking. So last meeting back to back. So this Edge Watcher stuff, right? I just wanted to understand if you go back to your slide, if you don't mind. So
the first one, right? This one.
Yeah, Watcher agent. The state, is that the one that is responsible for the status?
Yeah. So well, responsible is a very strong word. So the operator is responsible for getting the status. So we as a community agree that for UPF deployment, this is the set of status that it'll be exposing. So all operators that implements UPF deployment has to interpret how to calculate that status based on your particular network functions. So once that is updated, the Watcher agent was told to watch this guy. So they'd be watching it periodically. So if they detect any changes, it will send it back to the Edge Watcher running on management cluster.
Okay. So that communication is happening over the gRPC.
That's right for now. Yes.
Okay.
If you look to the CRD, Bala, I mean, I looked at it this morning. So the Watcher agent I looked at a little bit is that it's a generic GVK CRD. So you have a Watcher with a generic GVK CRD, which would point to all the deployments that happen in that cluster, which is controlled by, which would be synced via config sync. And then I think it looks at all the statuses of all the objects, so the GVKs, so group version kind namespace. So all of them. So if you have 10 UPF deployment, it will look at all the status of all the UPF deployments, or SMF deployments, or AMF deployments, and then report the status back via gRPC to the upper side based on the IP that was given. So the IP is part of the CRD that is at the workload cluster.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at the code.
Yeah, it is. So it's watching statuses the kind and type and namespace are given by the by management cluster. They tell them explicitly what to watch. So they're watching those.
Generic. It's generic, right? So
yeah,
we don't
it's very generic. Yeah, so they don't bind to a particular type. You just tell them, basically gives you like an object reference, basically in a way, to watch this, and then they only watch the status part of this, and then send it back. Send it back as a whole, in fact. So we're not even doing any processing at this point. So we can drastically optimize everything moving forward, but then for now, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So and then
it's a mechanism. I think, Bala, the way I look at it, how I describe it at the moment, it's a mechanism to report, because we have this. So at the moment, we have this flow from management cluster to workload cluster via config sync, right? So you basically all the CRs that are needed, we sync via config sync. What this does is basically it's a mechanism to report the status from the workload cluster back to the management cluster. And so it's status of all the CRs or the CR that we are interested in. You can report back with this watcher agent back towards a gRPC endpoint on your management cluster. That's what the watcher agent does, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, this is a very initial implementation of that feedback path, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Wim and Steven. So once the Edge Watcher gets set from the
status
from the statuses from the Edge clusters, what is the mechanism for it to?
Yeah, so the deployment is a different entity. So deployment is part of the NF deploy controller. Edge Watcher is the library. So it's actually a slightly simpler thing. So the Edge Watcher exposed them as if it was a local set of objects that you have. So you can basically use like a watch or list to see over those. And then what the deployment entity of NF deployed, which we will split out, is the so they take the NF deployed, it builds a graph, and it knows exactly what to look for. So basically they make a request to Edge Watcher and then propagate it down to Watcher agent. And then at that point they will be watching those objects. And then when it gets back, it would then update a graph and update the status. So you have a master NF deploy status to tell you for the entire deployment unit, these are the summary, and then even the whole list of statuses if you really actually want to ping that deep. It doesn't do anything fancy at this point.
Basically, it's basically creating a kind of a proxy / facade.
That's right. So it looks as if the entire deployment is now monitored locally by the system.
Okay, and probably whoever is making use of the libraries in the Edge Watcher, they are not even aware something is remote happening, because it's
so Edge Watcher just reported back to you, or you they have a client interface, so you are the client of Edge Watcher would be watching something during that time, or listing them if you want to, and then after this, what you do with them is the processing. So the deployment is very primitive right now, because I mean, I'm surprised. I suggested a graph to the engineering team. I was surprised they even built it, given the timeline, how tight the timeline was. So they actually built some sort of graph, but it's not like we can traverse and do something fancy, but we haven't done any of those yet on the code.
Cool, thanks.
But you can, for example, if you folks in Red Hat wants to build some different clients that uses the Edge Watcher library, you can easily do that too.
Okay.
That uses high-level logics and things over there. Or if you want to, as community, want to build something more fancy than what we have, you're welcome to do so. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so this obviously impacts it too. Oh, okay, go ahead on.
Quickly, will you cover the detail of the Watcher agent interacting with the other operators in the workload cluster?
Yeah, on 6.2
tomorrow?
meeting. Yeah, on
Okay,
not
cool.
tomorrow.
Thanks.
Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. So okay, so 6.2 there will be a big impact. I'll do that on Wednesday meeting. So I already kind of eat up that slot unless John said no. Or Wim say no. I put that onto the agenda list.
I have it
already.
because I had a request today in my subgroup meeting to ask for an explanation of the Watcher, and we pointed them to the Wednesday 9 a.m.
Okay, great.
So
yeah.
we don't want to
assume that is approved by the chair and vice chair. So that will happen on that will happen on Wednesday, the regular 9 o'clock meeting.
Oh, come on, you guys need to fight it out. We need some entertainment.
I'm
So
not
for
sure
6.3
yet.
oh, yeah, no, I know, yeah. For 6.3 impact, we obviously, as I said, the one thing you immediately get out of this code is well unit tested. Even someone as picky as Tao, he was quite happy with the unit test coverage. So he and I work on it to port from Google internal repos to outside. And then the first thing we did when we changed all the stuff is, oh, make test, and then wow, it's like a 60 something, 70 something%, and many cases some of the co-modules are 90 something% coverage, so it's actually quite good. Some of them are 20 something, so I mean, I'm not saying everything across the board are great, but then they're pretty good actually as a starting point. So we do use it. When the folks ask me what to use, I reference them back to KubeBuilder back about a year or so ago. So it turns out they use Ginkgo, which is, I know there was a discussion on unit tests. I think someone said they don't like it. So I hope it doesn't offend anyone. This is what it is today. Okay, good.
It's good in my view.
Yeah. So I don't want to dictate it. If the community wants to use some different unit test framework, do so for your code.
I mean,
it would be great to have a consistent one, of course.
I have an opinion.
Okay, sorry, Vich, you're first. I'll go next.
No, go ahead, finish your Wim.
No, so the thing that I was saying is that I use the regular testing for basic stuff, but Ginkgo when you do more sophisticated pieces, right? Because so even in the IPAM, I started to use Ginkgo for it because you have like all these complex scenarios that you have to test, and there it's perfect. I like it a lot. But I use the regular.
Nothing fancy. I'm someone when the engineering team asked, hey, what do you want to use for unit tests? And then I just went to the KubeBuilder docs, and then they said, oh, we all use Ginkgo. I was like, use that then.
But I use typically the regular Go test because for simple things like testing a library, is the set okay? You give a new input. What is the output?
I did that too for the cap function I wrote initially. So this is dating back like a year plus ago. But then this question was actually asked by someone who did the operators. So I just point them to the operators, and then gradually the engineering team just kind of converged on using this as a framework.
Okay, so and they do it for everything. Okay, that's interesting.
Go ahead, Vish. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say one to your Tal's comment about unit tests. In general, I think any project, open source project to succeed, like you saw on OpenStack, we definitely need unit tests and functional tests if you want to onboard people and they want to remain. Otherwise, it will be like a bunch of guys thinking that they're too smart and trying to do it. Then you will never have the community being built.
Yeah, and then a lot of people come in, do something, and break all kinds of stuff.
Break it, and then we cannot be like, everybody has to clean up after themselves. That's how I see unit test as.
Yes.
You need to, if you're writing
code, so we need them, and they long time. I think it goes without saying, but I think I said that too during the June Summit presentation. That without unit tests, obviously we're not going to accept
unit tests and functional tests where appropriate in the sense.
But functional test is more cross-reference, so it may have to be several commits together and then do a full functional test, functional integration test. But then absolutely no unit test, no check-in, right?
Yeah.
so
that's I have also used Ginkgo. I just want to say, and I'm glad Wim also brought it up. The tests, the generic test that provided by the Go language itself is powerful. Let's be conscious about when we want to go for the cannon to kill a mosquito versus just using the basic.
No, as I said, I don't want to dictate a unit test for
table-driven testing. Again, you want folks to come in who are new. There are going to be a bunch of people who are new to Go, and you want to make it easy for them. They come from Python. Where possible, use what is provided by the native Go language, and then where we need these enhancements, let's use a framework like Ginkgo for scenario-based testing. Behavior testing that we need to do. That's what Ginkgo is. What I see. Behavior-driven testing can be used. We want to use the mix rather than trying to use one for everything.
Okay,
that is my point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your decision now, anyway. So.
No. I think it should be something that should be coming from.
Versus unit one, but then I guess you're not doing that. In which case, you can sort of enforce, say, hey, I want one single unit test. But then I guess you're not saying that, so that's great.
No. I think where possible, like I said, when you can actually do things in the native Go way, use that. Where you actually want to use the complex thing that Wim was saying, where you want to do behavior-driven testing, where you want to do scenario testing,
Mhm.
use Ginkgo. And usually those behavior-driven testing usually ends up being on the, I mean, for me, I think it'll end up being on like, integration and functional testing. That's where it comes up. For basic unit testing, where you're doing boundary conditions and all this stuff, the table-driven feature provided by Go works. But for anything else, you can always use a Ginkgo.
Okay. Bala?
Yeah, I mean, the Ginkgo. I was a big proponent of Ginkgo myself as well. So that's how the discussion started in Slack. I mean, yeah, I can go either way. But Ginkgo is meant to be a unit testing framework. It's not necessarily
Yeah,
a
it is. Yeah.
framework. So that's what I wanted to emphasize. It is.
You think so, Bala?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is a unit
It's
testing.
behavior.
It mocks the hell out of all this stuff.
The behavior-driven testing is a style, is a philosophy of testing.
Yeah.
So the basic philosophy of BDD, I mean, is the testing frameworks exist in multiple languages. The fundamental philosophy of the BDD is you test your code by testing its behavior and explaining the behavior in
You're like, if this happens, this is what we expect, and then this is where it's supposed to go.
Exactly. So when yes, it's when then kind of a situation. So it's a philosophical rather, and it's also style. It's just a change in style, which it is still a unit testing. It is just a difference in style. That's it. So, and like you said, it could be used for integration as well. Just like, for example, JUnit could be used for integration testing as well when you in the JVM world, and so is Spark. Spark could be used for either cases. So my point is, yes, the tool is definitely a unit testing tool, and it could be used for both unit testing and integration testing. But I also agree with Vish. If somebody is fine with the native Go tool, we should have a means to use it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for being.
So for that, we actually have not opened up the gates for pre-submit for Proud. So either Arwen or Rado is going to do that, hopefully. And then as we talk about unit test coverage. So unit test framework, we don't want to unify it. That's Vish said. It's the seed code comes with that. Comes with the Ginkgo to be used. The second thing that would be impacting SIG3 is that we have not given you any integration tests. And then that isn't something that we'll probably port from Google directly. So we as Googlers, or if any volunteers who wants to do it, is going to be committed to build integration tests on the modules that we open sourced. And then we have to rely on SIG3 to create those environments, which is part of the test infra. And then so once that's available, so we are thinking it's probably going to be just the same thing as ONE Summit, that we can set up kind clusters. You're going to have some auto installations of Porch and the 35GC operators and things. And beyond that, for the environments, for our installations, we may actually build that as part of the test. We'll do it as part of the conditions of the test to push it in. In terms of environments, we would at least need an IP address to the NF deploy controller, so the Ash watchers can bind that for the server IP. So these are some of the infrastructure needs to expose an IP for a service running on the management clusters, so the workload cluster would be able to access. And so that's one of the requirements for us to test infra. And so the big question is, does it really work? Actually, it does not. It doesn't work. So so pods are coming up and things like that if you put all the repos and bring up Porch, but then it doesn't work. A couple of things. There needs to be a cloud integration point. There are actually a number of them. We'll probably discover more as we go. The first one is easy to get around with, but then the Edge Watcher today does try to detect a new workload cluster becoming available, and then it would send the CL automatically. So that you can do it manually. Obviously, I did it. You can construct the Watcher agent CLs and just push it down to the Edge repo. The second one though is not something we have to refactor out of the code. Today, the IP address being used by the Edge Watcher gRPC is the pod IP. The reason why we were able to get away with that is because there is a VPN link between the Google Cloud and Google Managed Edge clusters. So the VPN link is point-to-point. So anything that goes in and out of the pods that are connected on VPN would just go to the other end. And the VPN router, you just have to add routes, so they would know how to route it to the pod. So that infrastructure obviously is not there for everybody. So we will need to kind of refactor it out for different cloud integration points. And that brings me to probably more of a SIG2 point, which is the reason why we didn't just kind of factor it out or anything like that before seeding is because we would like to do that exercise in the community in a way. We should identify the cloud integration points within our code to make sure that this is eventually, maybe not for R1, but at least eventually this is multi-cloud. And then to make this multi-cloud thing work is you can kind of treat the test environment as like an FEO cloud. And that's basically the way I would look at it, the test infra. It may not be long running, and then eventually it probably will. We'll run an instance of our test environment in cloud, and that would be our Nephew cloud. And then the Nephew cloud would by itself implement some sort of the integration point pieces that needs to be done for whatever we generate. The watch agents, Edge Watchers is one, and then probably whatever SIG2 will be generating moving forward. There could be more of a cloud dependencies or infrastructure dependencies on things. We have to identify those integration points, and then we have to kind of simulate that on this environment. This may or may not be a SIG3 thing. Maybe SIG2 have to write it too. But then at least that would be the test infrastructure would have to have that ability to consume that integration point. Yeah, go ahead, Wish.
So, two things. One is the code that you have put in right now at this point of time. I know it's in it's created in the GitHub repository. Is there opportunity for folks in the community to review that and provide their comments?
Oh yeah, go ahead. It is there. Anyone can. Well,
GitHub doesn't let you comment on code that's.
I mean, you don't comment on code is already in there.
So it's like it's already.
You can read it and then set an issue. For example, you can create an issue by saying that, oh, I read this code and then you should do blah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to do it.
See, some of these things I think we are going with. I mean, I like the spirit of the community, right? Well, I can tell you this. I've been a delivery manager in the past. And usually, I mean, even though most of the time I'm positive, I'm also pessimistic when it comes to, if you want to take the community along, there needs to be an opportunity for folks to go ahead, look at the code, play with it.
Yeah, so if you look at the code, you really get down to the code level, you can always send a PR.
Okay.
That would be one way.
Okay.
And then,
I guess
eventually,
the question is like, are these repos? So we were just having a discussion of the repos, right? So, for example, the common lib things, those are common libraries. We have to look at those. Maybe they should move into the Nephew repo under PKG, right? Typically in a Go program, you have a PKG hierarchy that has your packages, your sort of reusable bits of code. And maybe EdgeWatcher repo stays its own repo, or maybe it moves under an Edge repo directory. I think probably these things belong in their own. Like I still think even all I did was create the API directory, but like API repo, but like we might need, we kind of need to decide ultimately where I guess all the code. Anyway, I'm rambling again, but for a big block of code like this, it's really hard to do it as a giant PR. So I think that probably submitting PRs against it and saying, I don't think this is a good way to do it, or an issue against it saying this is not the right way to do it is probably where we go right now. But we have to decide for each of these repos whether they're part of the eventual deliverable or not, I guess is what,
Right.
like whether what the things are built directly out of there or whether pieces of them move into other repos and they get built out of those other repos.
So one other thing. I
Yeah,
know we
for
have
now,
2
because
minutes.
we see it as is, so it is what it is. But then many opportunities for folks if they really go down to
Yeah.
code level, go ahead and send a PL. No problem.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that point is like there's so many things to digest here that people are going to be left behind, is what I feel, unless they're actually working like 16 hours. Just throwing it out there. But anyway, there's only 2 more minutes.
Mhm.
I know on the agenda, Arvind and Vish, I mean, we had some things out there. Maybe we'll not get to it, but at least there are 2 PRs out there that I'm looking
My
for.
part is done anyway, so that's great.
Yeah,
So
there
go
are
ahead.
2 PRs out there. One is actually support for Podman that we have out there. That if those 2, John and Stephen, that can be reviewed and merged, that'll be great. I've also asked Wim to take a look at it. I've got it working on my Fedora VM and also on the Ubuntu.
It's a PL on the one summit.
Yes, the workshop
repo,
VM,
right?
because that will be
Okay.
used. Basically, I'm thinking that will be one of those sandboxes that
Yeah.
will build on, right? So we have that. It'll be good to get that.
Yeah, we should create more like a Nephew's test infra or test Nepheo.
Yeah,
CI
but if that can
or
get merged for the workshop VM, because that is something that internally I'm going to be using, me and Bala will be using for Fedora and Podman to be able to demoing to our internal Red Hat teams. That'll be great to,
Okay. Yeah.
for us to
Yeah,
like say,
so
hey,
I would
yeah,
ask, yeah, if some, I haven't like been super close in that code, so I don't know that I can do a very good review of it, but if Wim or
Yeah, if Wim said yes, I will just merge it.
I think we have something to talk, yeah. Yeah. The other thing I can do, John and Wim, is I'll probably create a VM in that Google Linux Foundation Google Cloud account and actually have a working version delivered there so that you guys can examine it.
Okay, yeah, I think you should still have permissions there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I still have permissions. I just created a Fedora VM. I realized you also have Fedora OS
Yeah.
also supported.
All
So-
that stuff's there, yep.
That is something I'll be doing, and I'm looking to get that closed as soon as possible. So it'll be great.
Cool, thank you.
And that brings us to the hour. Is there anything else from anyone?
So,
If not,
so
go ahead.
one thing, sorry, I wanted to let me raise a hand. Sorry, let me raise a hand.
No, go ahead.
So Vish, I think I looked at that PR. I think I think it may require your attention. It says some checks failed or something. Please take a look at that one.
Yeah, that is actually that checks comes from the leftover Ansible kind that Sandeep had used, and we are not using that anymore. And I don't want to actually go off and remove code that Sandeep has written in the past.
There was an issue with the superlinter version
Yes.
or something at some point that didn't include something.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
That
Vish,
is-
I would think, see, I mean, in that one summit, we had so much stuff, right? I think it's time probably to basically build our test environment thing and take the pieces that we need and put it there.
Yep.
And make sure that we have the linter and all the tooling done there, because right now the repo is super, there's so much stuff inside. I try
Pretty
to,
bloated, yeah.
it was
to
meant
up
to
the-
be a temporary, yeah.
We've been talking about doing that since November. Oh,
Yes,
no.
actually, that has been something on my mind. It's more like see, this is where the opportunity, when new people come in, they want to contribute something, we give them as an opportunity where they open a PR, take out things, add things, small things that will make them happy, that they've contributed. So I was actually trying to hold on to that for some of this, also talking to Sandeep too as well and saying, hey, are you okay if we remove this piece? I want to give people that opportunity. So yes, you're right about that. And for the one summit thing that we have, we want to start creating tags. We now had a tag at the end of December that John created. Now with the Podman support and Fedora support, we can create another tag, and then we can start slowly removing things. and
Yeah, I
adding
think
to the test infra.
we should maybe merge the things that need to be merged and then tag
start
it and then
reorganizing,
actually freeze it and not
Yes.
do more work on it.
Yes.
I have to go, I'm late for another call.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
stop.
Stephen, one
go ahead.
more comment. Actually, this is I'm not expecting any answer or anything.
Mhm.
So the fundamental requirement of here we are expecting all the edge clusters to have IP connectivity to the management cluster. In certain situations that may be challenged. So
Yeah,
that is
So
something we can-
when the design first came up, I was suggesting, using auto mechanisms like so when someone create a clusters now, the most standard cloud native way of doing it would be they would open up some ports and things to send it to a metric server or some sort of log server. So we'll at one point I was suggesting, instead of using gRPC as a private channel, as an out of band channel, if you will, you would be using you would summarize directly on the edge clusters, and then send it out as like a metrics point with a tag. The team listened to it is a way to do it, but then they didn't implement it. So there's something we can do in the community. We can do other designs. I know Bernard didn't say today. During the June time when we make the presentation, Bernard did say something about edge clusters accessibility may not be available all the time.
Yeah.
So there's some things that we should think about, the air gap environments and things. So we'll have to figure out how to get around all of those. But then for now, yeah, go ahead.
There is a project, like if you look to gRPC tunnel, right, that Google did, it basically does that. I think we have even an open source project that does it.
Okay.
Basically, it sets up a gRPC tunnel, so you basically host a server in the management cluster, and it basically dials out, and then you have a dial out endpoint over there. It's defined by Google in OpenConfig.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, yeah.
Only dial out only when you have to send something, and then they cut the connections when they're done sending. Basically.
At the moment, the tunnel would be you would establish it, because I think, yeah, I mean, in our case, we probably want that channel to be open all the time, right? Because you see, that's what they do. I think that's also what you do in Anthos somehow, right? Not.
So right now the implementation is the VPN link is there all the time, obviously. It's established. In terms of update, I have to admit we haven't done a lot of performance level tests, so we don't know how often do we expect a status update, because as I said, it only sends status upward when there's a change in the status. So it may not happen that often. Yeah, but we'll see how the behavior goes. I mean, this is definitely a very version 0.1 implementations that we would need to evolve as a community to see what the requirement looks like. Okay, well, we have time, and thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen, for this. Yeah, thanks everyone.
I guess Wim would be the one stopping the recording.
Okay. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it.